This is a rallying point for interfaithism, is that right?
Correct.
Do you see, Carl Teichribb, and that's who I'm talking to for this segment, do you see this as a foreshadowing, as a run-up to a global religion that will play out on Earth eventually?
I could see it playing a role, at least at this point, in this way. It was the recognition that you can all have your own religious traditions, dogmas, theologies, and doctrines. But while we have that diversity, we are all working towards oneness. We all are working towards that common goal where we are all interconnected at a planetary level. We are all one. That man, nature, and divinity, we all share the same essence. So we were told, in fact, on a number of occasions, embrace the diversity, but recognize the fact that we are all one. So at the very least, Jan, the mindset is moving us in that direction to the point where we already can embrace the philosophical, pseudo-spiritual ideas that lead us towards something even bigger in the future.
You're listening to Understanding the Times Radio. I'm Jan Markell. I'm talking for this segment with Carl Teichribb, who attended the Parliament of World Religions in Salt Lake City just a matter of a month or two ago. And there were 50 religions represented, and 10,000 world religious leaders were present at this event. And Carl, I heard you say this was communion with the cosmic Christ, and that it was very acceptable to have this kind of communion with a cosmic Christ.
Yes, and indeed, every day there were various times for doing rituals, for times when people could come together and perform different things in sacred spaces. One of the events that I didn't attend, but some of the other researchers that I knew were on the ground attended, and that was a cosmic mass where they were supposed to attune themselves to the cosmic Christ. We were all evolving into this Christhood, that kind of idea. The other aspect that kind of fit with the goddess theme was that it was realized here, and it was preached to us on a number of occasions, that what we're seeing here is the divine side of the cosmic Christ, the feminine divine side, the goddess side of who God is. Here's one of the things that was set up to help emphasize that point. We had a red tent temple set up, a women's sacred space, all done in red to represent the sacred aspect of your reproductive cycle. And so, I mean, it was just bizarre. And yet at the same time, these were people totally devoted and given over to that worldview.
I'm quoting you here, Carl. This was the experiential side of Christianity. It feels like you are a part of something. Emphasis on emotional experience. Doctrine is not important. So you say this was experiential Christianity.
Yes. The reason I say that is because it was recognized, especially in one of the workshops I went to, which was all about exploring where the differences are in our theology and our belief systems, and then where we could all come together. And it was recognized that as Christians, if you have this experience where you feel like you're one with God, you feel as if God and you are somehow connected, God is moving in your midst in a mystical way, it is the same feeling that you can have through yoga and Hinduism, or through the world of the Sufi dervishes in mystical Islam, or in any of the myriad of other religions that were present. And in fact, there was one little experiment that our group did in a big ballroom that demonstrated that here we had maybe 20, 30 religions represented in this ballroom, and all of them had that shared common experience, including those in the midst who have been considered to label themselves Christian. So the bottom line became this. It was a realization that we need to put our dogmas aside, and we just need to feel. We need to feel as one, feel we've had this group encounter, feel the idea that God is now in our midst. And this becomes very dangerous because this points us to areas that this is where cults come out of. This is where we elevate ourselves higher than the truth of God's Word, because it's now based on our feelings.
This is going to meet every 2 years. When is it going to meet again? Do they have a date and a location?
When the Parliament was over, they did not give a date or a location. They just said that that's in the works. But there was a lot of excitement in the air because it was publicly announced that every 2 years this will be held. And we were told just stay tuned. They'll let us know, and the world will begin to organize itself back around the Parliament of World Religions.
Carl, you wrote, it happens because of biblical illiteracy. They can't recognize the counterfeit because too many don't know what the truth is. And I'm sure as you looked at those empty faces, and I looked at them online, that must have just been leaping out at you. This biblical illiteracy has caused this.
Yes, and in fact, I talked to people who were at the event. I talked to one Sufi, which is a branch of mystical Islam, and this particular lady was not from overseas. She was not from a Middle Eastern country. She was from New York State, has grown up in the U.S. all of her life, and in the short conversation that I had, she more or less said she knew nothing about the Bible and nothing really about Christianity. All she had was her assumptions, and that was it. And then looking to see in terms of even how the Christian community responded to this, because there was people there like Brian McLaren, like Jim Wallace, like representation from the Vatican. The very fact that they were involved at this level demonstrates that they themselves are not understanding the biblical ramifications and the biblical message of separating ourselves from what the world is doing. And here was the world all acting as one.
Carl, did you have any opportunity to truly share the gospel with anybody?
It was tough. I went there mostly engaging in research. There were other apologists who were there. They were doing exactly that. I had a couple of opportunities, and we had some good conversations, but you know, Jan, it was like talking to a brick wall.
Really?
I had one lady who couldn't even come up with the idea or couldn't even grasp the idea that reality isn't one. Reality really is two. God, separate, distinct, and utterly different than creation. She couldn't even wrap her head around that concept, couldn't even believe that something like that could even be real, because she was so deeply enmeshed in the idea that God, nature, and mankind, we're all essentially the same. And that's the new pagan spirituality that has come upon us, even right within our North American experience.